I know it's hard, I know it's complicated, but I promised you've been waiting here forever. I had a much to say, but you're not here with me, no. We're invincible, like fire in the snow. Trust me when I say you are my beautiful world, and I'm feeling it all, we should make an effort. It's true you're so far away, and it's true you don't feel the same. But if you take my hand, we can try and go back, starting from scratch. I won't let you go, no I can't let you go, 'cause you're my gravity, and I will never leave. I won't let you go, no baby I will not, because I still believe. You're my gravity. You will never be what I expected. Different frequencies, that's why we ain't connected. You know I will make it through, I got nothing to lose but you. It's true you're so far away, and it's true I can feel the same. It's another day, you know you want me to stay, but I go my way. I won't let you go, no I can't let you go, 'cause you're my gravity, and I will never leave. I won't let you go, no baby I will not, because I still believe. You're my gravity. You're my gravity. You're calling on my name, but the echo numbs your pain. Sorry, but more than just a shadow, I'm more than just a man. You don't care how I feel, you don't know how I feel. No, you don't know how. I wash away the sorrow till my heart can beat again. You're my gravity. No, you're my gravity. I will let you go, the only thing that I know. You were my gravity, but now I have to leave. I will let you go. Why do you feel that I want? What do you think that I want? I know how to breathe into my gravity, into my gravity, into my gravity, into my gravity, into my gravity. I know it's hard, I know it's complicated, but I promised you've been waiting here forever. I had a much to say, but you're not here with me, no. We're invincible, like fire in the snow. Trust me when I say you are my beautiful world, and I'm feeling it all, we should make an effort. It's true you're so far away, and it's true you don't feel the same. But if you take my hand, we can try and go back, starting from scratch. I won't let you go, no I can't let you go, 'cause you're my gravity, and I will never leave. I won't let you go, no baby I will not.
Warning: the Duracell Cup Series data file you have attempted to access is out of date. Uploading current file now.
It's a brand new car from stem to stern, and it's never been raced at these speeds.
The next gen car is opportunity.
Everything is different with the exception of like the seat, the steering wheel, and your helmet.
Unknown creates excitement.
Talking about my generation.
Good afternoon, race fans, and welcome here as we get set to continue on the playoffs for Season 7 of the NNSCRA Duracell Next Gen Cup Series Season 7 here this afternoon at the historic Hanford Speedway. This is the middle race of the round of 12. This pretty much sets the table up for our second elimination race next week at Arizona Speedway, where we will whittle the playing field down from 12 to our Elite 8. After last week, Joshua Osborne going to victory lane at Hillside. Nobody is locked into the round of 8 at this point in time, and as we bring up our playoff points, you can clearly see nobody is safe. Matthew Rodriguez and Reese Banks, yeah, they're tied currently for the points lead in the playoffs, but focus on that 8th in the standings cut line, currently held by Zach Rogers. They're only 18 points to the good. With a 42-car field here today, Rodriguez, Banks, Butcher, who look like they're in really good shape right now, they could be below the cut line heading into the elimination race next week. Right around that cut line, though, drivers that did fairly well but didn't get the best of results last week, like Jessica Shelton, Casey Hoyt, they're only 8 and 7 points to the good above the cut line. Rogers, the cut line driver, he finished outside the top 20 last week, as did Keith Batson, who was just behind him in the running order, so he's only 2 points below Rogers' cut line 8th in the standings position. The other 3 drivers, they're going to need some help here today. They cannot afford another bad race, or else they're going to probably go into Arizona in a must-win situation. LaPlante finished multiple laps down last week. He comes into this race 9 points below the cut line. 11 points below the cut line. And then Rob Evans and Dylan Poteet both suffered DNFs. So they come into this race. Evans a total of 16 points below the cut line, and Poteet a total of 17 points below the cut line. But you look at the cut line driver, and then the highest in the points and lowest in the points. 18 to the good for the points leader, 17 to the bad for the lowest driver in points. That means that there's only a total of 35 points separating first down through 12th in the standings. That is less than a full field. So there are a lot of points that are going to be up for grabs here this afternoon, and we could have some different faces above and below the cut line going out than we did coming in. On the front row here, at least up in front, I believe the top 7 spots all comprised of non-playoff contenders, so would put even more emphasis on points for the 12 drivers trying to advance into the next round. Jose Mills capturing his second pole on the season. Still looking for that first victory as well, as he sits alone at the top of all-time Duracell Cup Series wins. Alongside of him, though, is Michael Norman. Michael, a former winner from just a couple of weeks ago when we were at Chatham, and he's looking for win number 2 here in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Kyle Matthews, he was very fast in qualifying. He's still looking for his first win on the season, is the former champion. He'll make up row number 2 alongside of Matt McIntyre, who has been on a long winless streak going all the way back to, I believe it was season 2, it might have been season 1, trying to get his first victory in a long, long time in Duracell Cup Series competition. You got to go all the way back to Reese Banks, who I believe is rolling off from the 7th or 8th position for our highest starting playoff contender. He was the only playoff driver that made it into the Fast 10 to run for the pole, which means that the other 11 playoff contenders are intermingled just outside of the top 10 and all the way back through towards the very rear of the field. How important will track position be here today at Hanford? We haven't even talked about this racetrack. Obviously, if you joined us for qualifying, you heard the whole story about the fact that we were originally supposed to be at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park for our final road course of the season. Everything in terms of testing was perfect, with the exception of drivers being able to make green flag pit stops. That was unable to be fixed, and therefore we had to change the venue. We are here at the condensed Pocono, if you will, this three-corner triangular speedway, 3 entirely different degrees of banking in each one of these corners, and a very rough historical racing surface. Should be interesting to see how this one plays its part into setting us up for what type of scenario our playoff contenders will be looking to advance into the Elite 8 next week at Arizona, and it will be 81 circuits here today at this 1.375 mile speedway. Let's get ready to go racing. I certainly want to know what this racetrack's going to bring to the table, and I'm sure these drivers do as well. Down trackside we go for pre-race ceremonies and the command to fire up engines.
Drivers, start your engines!
All right, boys, just like we talked about in the meeting, what's going to pay off for us today is patience and consistency. Good, smooth racing on the racetrack, and that's what will take us up to the front. We'll be there at the end of this thing.
So we've got an issue of somebody on pit road. Outside line did not get going. You see the right side of your screen, the starting lineup, and we'll try and figure out who that driver is that's had a problem on the grid. It's Quentin Moore in the 89. Unable to fire that race car, so everybody's having to kind of play a little bit of catch-up from his positioning on back. They should be able to catch up in time in preparation for this afternoon's green. 81 laps of racing. Expect to see good racing all the way through the field. Pit strategy, I feel like, is going to come into play here today with how worn out this track surface is. Track that used to, back in the day, host IndyCar races. As Jose Mills and Michael Norman, a couple of blue ovals, going to bring us down into the restart zone and then lead us to the start-finish line, which is all the way down here into the entrance of turn number 1. Overcast, cloudy conditions here this afternoon. Should allow for maybe a little bit more grip in the racetrack, not nearly as slidey as it was in qualifying yesterday, as we're 3 wide and almost 4 wide back there in the middle of the pack. Still 3 wide, about 3 rows deep, just outside of the top 15. Down the front straightaway, Michael Norman with the run on the outside of turn 3 is going to lead them back to the start-finish line. From the outside of the front row, Norman to the point. His teammate Matt McIntyre will move around the outside of Jose Mills for second place, so Michael Norman Motorsports 1-2. Then Mills and Matt Haas going to duke it out for the 3rd spot. '48 of Austin LaPlante saw his bright green Quaker State Chevrolet back there way up the racetrack, going through turn number 2. I don't know if he got the wall or not. He was awfully close if he didn't. Try and see if we can get a camera angle here coming off of 1. See if there is any damage on his machine or not. Doesn't look like we're going to get to know. But he is fading back after he was kicked way up out of the groove. Mike Tellier just got the wall right there in the 17. You could hear it. And you can see the sparks coming off the right rear. And now drivers trying to make their way around his machine. Anthony Rodriguez right there, LaPlante, Keith Batson, Rob Evans. Got a cluster of playoff contenders all together right here. Looks like they finally got the Quentin Moore issue fixed. He's out here on the racetrack. He'll be coming around to take the green flag to start his race. Already a couple of laps down. As Michael Norman and Matt McIntyre have checked out on Jose Mills. Nose to tail, trying to open up a gap between the two of them. Mills was able to hold off Matt Haas to keep the third spot, and Kyle Matthews moves up into fourth. Fifth place, side by side, Daniel Voiles and Mitchell Collins. And then Reese Banks, the highest qualifier of our playoff contenders and currently the highest running of the playoff drivers, holding down the 7th position. Dylan Pote needs a good day here today. Coming in the lowest of the 12 playoff drivers after the DNF he suffered last week at Hillside. Right now he is the second highest playoff contender on the running order, P11. And with that pass on Will Goss, just broke into the top 10. It's like Mike Tellier has come to pit road. We saw the shot he took there into the outside wall. He's brought it down for repairs, and man, Matt Haas just clobbered the wall right there off of turn 1. And that might send him to pit lane. Battle for the lead is on. Matt McIntyre looks to the inside of his teammate Michael Norman. Still side by side between those two, heading down what would be considered a Pocono of the Long Pond Straight into the 8-degree banked turn 2. Still side by side as they'll head into turn 3. McIntyre looks like he might clear here off the corner, but nope, Norman stays to his right rear quarter. Not quite clear up is the 21. Maybe he can get him down here into the progressive 7-22 banked turn 1. Nope, that outside line prevails. And that holds true to kind of what we knew coming into this race of this racetrack. That outer line is a lot more stable, a lot more opportunity to get back to the throttle over there into turn 1. Inside line a lot more loose. Rear tires don't grip as well when you get back to the throttle. Back end wants to snap around occasionally. So if you're going to make a pass on somebody on the inside, you're going to want to do it over in 2 or 3, not necessarily over here in turn 1. Kind of likened this track to Pocono in the fact it's got 3 corners, but it is entirely different in terms of its degrees of banking. At Pocono, the most degrees of banking are over in turn 1. That's the same here for this racetrack, but then second most is over here in turn 2, and then the least is over in turn 3, where it almost feels somewhat flat. There's actually more banking here at Hanford over in 3 than there is in 2. 8 degrees in 2, 12 degrees in 3, and then a maximum of 22 degrees over here in turn 1. Good battle for third. Kyle Matthews to the inside of Jose Mills. He's got the lap car of Quentin Moore, a fellow Chevrolet bow tie, helping him to make that pass. Quentin not for position as he is currently 2 laps down after having issues at the start of this race. But trying to maybe help Kyle Matthews get up there onto the podium, and I think Matthews has got the spot. I believe he is cleared Jose Mills right there. I think that's how you're going to have to make a pass on the inside, is through turn 3. Hope you get that car cleared by the time you get to the straightaway. Matt McIntyre is not going away quietly, still continuing to try and make the pass on Michael Norman. That's just going to help third place on back to be able to reel these guys in. They've been enjoying about a 1-second gap from them back to third place, and the more side-by-side battling they do, the more they're going to wear down those tires with not having the optimal entries into the corner, and of course with the side drafting as well, slowing each other down. It's going to hinder them opening up that gap. McIntyre, I think, might have cleared Norman. He did. McIntyre finally gets to the point in the Mako Mermaids Ford Mustang. Norman will slot into second, and Quentin Moore, who does have fresher tires than everybody else, about 2 lap fresher tires, so no surprise to see him catch up here to the race leaders. Reese Banks has been able to close in on Kyle Matthews and Jose Mills, but he just got the wall there off of turn 1. And that is not good news, because if he's got a lot of damage, that's going to hinder him on the potential upcoming green flag pit stop. That's something we got to keep tabs on. Mike Tellier is the only driver that has hit the wall so far that has come to pit road for damage repair. But if you do have damage and you come to pit road for a regularly scheduled stop, you are probably going to lose some time on that pit stop and thus lose track position getting the repairs done then and there. Reese Banks is not able to hold the bottom now as he goes way wide again there through turn 2. Dylan Poteet's managed to actually make his way around Reese Banks, so he is the highest playoff contender on the track in 7th place. And we got more cars here that are trying to take advantage of the 44 of Reese Banks. I got to think, too, if you get the wall, get damage on the right front, that's going to really tighten up the race car, and you don't want to have a tight race car at a track like this, let alone at a bigger version like Pocono. Actually, a correction on my part, Poteet took 6th from Reese Banks. Banks dropped back to 7th. There's our winner from last week, Joshua Osborne, maybe looking for 2 in a row as he's riding in the tire tracks of the former champion Charles Sanford. Osborne just outside of the top 10 right now in 11th. This is 15th on back, a couple of playoff contenders right here in the mix that were separated by 2 points as the cut line driver, and just below the cut line, Keith Batson was -2 to Zach Rogers. Rogers was 8th in points coming in. Batson was 9th. Right now they are scored in the 14th and 15th position. Gaggle of cars right here. Carson Gum, teammate Anthony McCrory. You got RJ Bishop there in the 98. Jessica Shelton, another of our playoff contenders. Last time by scored in 23rd. Let's see where she is now after she's been able to cut past a couple of cars. 21st right now for Shelton, who came into this race only 8 points above the cut line. So not safe by any means. But it will be interesting to see because Shelton, remember we were at, was it Chicagoland, I think? And Shelton was one of the best drivers in terms of gaining track position on green flag pit stop cycles. Be interesting to see if we end up having multiple green flag pit stops this week, if she's able to do the same. Matthew Rodriguez right now in the 25th position in the 24 car out of Northeast Motorsports. Was 18 points to the good above the cut line coming into this one. And if he's able to have a decent enough run here today, same for Reese Banks, Ryan Butcher, if they can get themselves about 30-35 points ahead of the cut line heading into next week, they could pretty much be safe to advance into the next round of the playoffs. But for right now, Rodriguez is not quite at that point, neither is Ryan Butcher. There's Rob Evans. He's got some right side damage, I see, on the 9D Creative Chevrolet. Evans, 11th in points, 16 points below the cut line. Doesn't look like this afternoon has gotten off to that great a start for the regular season champion. So he's battling back here around the 28th position. We saw LaPlante way up the track in the early going. He has since drifted all the way back to 33rd place, where he's battling with Chris Dollerton. A lot of other playoff drivers mired back here as well. Casey Hoyt is currently in the 34th spot. His teammate Jesse Turner currently scored in 36th. There is Connor Breeden back in 37th, and Ryan Butcher is currently in the 38th position. That's about 5 playoff contenders right there that are scored outside of the top 30. Reggie Fogelman with damage on the left side of his machine, so I can only assume either maybe he got hooked down into something that didn't bring out a yellow, or he got squeezed up into the wall. between the wall and another car. Now he's got some right side damage as well, as Benjamin Miles is going to make the pass around him. There's Mike Tellier, who's returned back onto the track after his unscheduled pit stop. He is 1 lap down. Quentin Moore is only 1 lap down because he got one of his 2 laps back the hard way, getting around Matt McIntyre. All 42 cars are still running at this point, as we are a quarter of the way through this race. Matt McIntyre very low there through 3 and 4. Michael Norman ran about a groove and a half, almost 2 grooves higher, trying to close up on his teammate. Kyle Matthews is now cleared into 3rd, and he's trying to reel in the top 2. His lap times are much faster than both Matt McIntyre and Michael Norman, so if we're looking at a driver that's good for the long run, that Mellow Yellow Chevrolet would probably be in that category. And Dylan Poteet's now made his way up into the 4th position. Poteet looking for his 2nd win on the season and looking to win his way into the round of 8. Daniel Boyles right now holding down the final spot inside of the top 5. And then about another 6 car lengths back to Reese Banks. As right now you've got only 2 playoff drivers currently inside of the top 10. Next highest is Keith Batson, who last time by was scored in P11. And that is where he currently is at. Now the question is, how far can these drivers go on fuel, or do they maybe come to pit road more out of the necessity of tires? As I'm looking at some of these drivers back here, and they're already running somewhere in the vicinity of 2.5 to 3 seconds slower than the laps they put down in the early going of this one. 3 wide, Sanford, Goss, and Mills through the higher bank turn 1. Looks like Sanford had to back out of that one. Middle line got a better run off the corner for Will Goss. As Jose Mills continues to fall. Mills started the race from the pole, kind of tucked into around the 3rd or 4th position when we last checked after going through the field, and he has since lost another 5 spots. So it looks like that car was definitely set up for qualifying, maybe short run speed, not as much long run speed, as now he's under fire from Charles Sanford and Keith Batson, in danger of falling outside of the top 10 25 laps after he led us to green. Poteet's on the move. He's just made the pass on Kyle Matthews for 3rd. And now closing up on the Michael Norman Motorsports teammates of Mike McIntyre and Michael Norman. Now last time by, Poteet ran a 39.1 to the 39.7 and 39.8 run by the Blue Ovals. As Poteet looks to run these drivers down, let's go on board with the Castrol X Chevrolet and let him take us around this historic triangular speedway. Dylan Poteet going to work to get the race lead from Matt McIntyre. As we were on board with him, he completed the pass around Michael Norman to move up to P2. Dylan Poteet knows that if he gets the checkered flag here this afternoon, he goes into Arizona next week worry-free. He knows he'll be one of the 8 representatives in the next round of the playoffs. Poteet, a former winner on the season. 5 top 5s and 10 top 10s on the year. It's not been a career year for Dylan Poteet, but it was a very consistent year. His finishes did taper off a little bit towards the end of the regular season, as at one point on the year we were thinking he was going to be up in the regular season championship conversation. But he managed to make his way into the playoffs nonetheless. Pretty handily made his way into a round of 12. A little bit of a sticky situation after the DNF last week at Hillside here in this round of 12, but easily looking like one of the strongest playoff drivers here today as he goes way wide here into turn 3, and I wondered if the hand might have been out the window for Matt McIntyre, indicating coming to pit road, and that's why Poteet gave him all that room. McIntyre's coming in, Joshua Osborne, Jose Mills, Mitchell Collins in this time as well. So going for the undercut strategy is the race leader, Matt McIntyre. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out for him. These pit stops taking place around the lap 30 mark, which means I think they're going to have to pit at least one more time before the conclusion of this race after this cycle is completed. And it'll be somewhere around the 20 laps to go mark, if indeed about 30 laps is the furthest they can go. Poteet, is he coming in this time? No, he'll stay out an extra lap, but Michael Norman is coming in, along with Kyle Matthews, Daniel Voiles, Levi McIntyre, Will Goss, and others. Looks like Anthony McCurry and Will Goss are going to stay out. Keith Batson stays out. Reese Banks and Dylan Poteet, a couple of our high-running playoff drivers there. The 31, the 44, the 39, playing the long strategy here. See if they come down pit road this time. So it was a three-way battle for the lead before this pit stop cycle began. McIntyre was the first in, then Norman, then Poteet. Where are those three in respect to each other going to cycle around to? We're going to have to wait and see here, as a bit of a narrow pit road here these drivers have to traverse. Poteet will pull into the attention of his crew. See if we can find the 21 of Matt McIntyre. There he is. We'll have to see where he is in relation to everybody else when this all cycles around. Again, too, you're probably at this point going to see some drivers fall down in the running order that may have sustained right side damage from the earlier portion of this race, getting into the wall, especially off of turn number 2, and have to spend that extra time on pit lane for damage repair and going to lose spots as a result. Rob Evans just up ahead of Matt McIntyre. I believe that he's now on the tail end of the lead lap, and Matt Haas just behind Matt McIntyre is, I believe, the first car one lap down. Both of them, we know, were in the wall and probably had to have an extended pit stop to get the damage repaired on the right side. Scoring right now has Matt McIntyre in second and now has him in the race lead. And where is his competition? He has completely left them in the dust. Here they are all the way back here. Dylan Poteet and Michael Norman in a battle for what is now second place. And scoring says that this group is almost 5 seconds behind the 21 car. So Matt McIntyre in that call to short pit, and whatever they were able to do on that pit stop, he has completely left the rest of the competition in the dust. We'll have to see if they can reel him in. There's Quentin Moore coming onto pit lane. He pits a little bit later than everybody else after he had trouble getting off pit road at the start of this race. So he was a couple laps shorter on fuel than everyone else. I'm sorry, a couple laps better on fuel than everybody else, I should say. As this battle continues, and it still, according to scoring, is 5.5 seconds behind race leader Matt McIntyre. As they keep battling, Matt McIntyre, who's got nothing but clean racetrack in front of him, is just going to continue to pull away. He just ran his fastest lap of the race, did Matt McIntyre, that last time by at a 37.510. Remember, in qualifying yesterday, Michael Norman was the only driver that hit a 37 second lap time. It's like Mike Tellier getting bypassed by Rob Evans. Benjamin Miles about to have the same done here. Mike Tellier getting put a lap down now in the 17 car. He had cycled back around onto the lead lap after the pit stops, but now he's going to get put a lap down after we saw him get into the wall. That car is off the pace. Not the way Mike Tellier was looking to have his third race on the season go. Benjamin Miles right now in the 38th position. I believe he and Rob Evans right there just had an exchange for 37th. Both on the tail end of the lead lap, just ahead of Matt McIntyre. Now, up until Watkins Glen, none of the Michael Norman Motorsports cars had gone to victory lane. Matt McIntyre, Michael Norman, Nathan Ormond, or Mitchell Collins. Nathan Norman got the win at Watkins Glen. Michael Norman a couple of weeks ago got the win at Chatham. And now, as things are looking at the moment, very much in favor of Matt McIntyre, making it 3 out of the 4 cars of that stable finding victory lane. Michael Norman has taken over the second spot now. Looks like all that battling has settled. Levi McIntyre has now moved into third, and he's going to try and make the pass here on Michael Norman for the runner-up spot. Strong car there for Michael Norman today, as Fords currently hold first through fourth, with Daniel Voiles in that fourth position. Let's see where our playoff drivers are after everything cycled around. So Poteet is now back to fifth, but he is still the highest running of the playoff contenders. Keith Batson is the second highest running of them. He's currently holding down 8th place. Jessica Shelton is currently now in 12th. That's the third highest of the playoff contenders. One playoff driver that was up here that has faded back is Reese Banks, and I'm wondering if it might have been that damage he had on the right side that dropped him back to now 17th. Zach Rogers is right now in 24th. Matthew Rodriguez in 26th. Boy, the playoff drivers are not doing well today, that's for sure. Playoff contending teammates there, Austin LaPlante and Connor Breeden. They're 31st and 32nd. Casey Hoyt's all the way back in 33rd. Ryan Butcher 34th. Jesse Turner 35th. Rob Evans right now on the tail end lead lap in 37th place. And that's where your playoff drivers cycle out to, so it looks like it's going to be at the moment. Oh no! Matt McIntyre just got the wall there. Got arrow tight in the draft of Benjamin Miles, and now he's got damage. Question is, how bad is the damage? That sounded like a pretty good shot there. And he has over 6 seconds, almost 7 seconds, back to Levi McIntyre, who has cleared Michael Norman. And he'll have some lap traffic to deal with here. And Matt Haas and I believe that's Quentin Moore before he gets up there to Matt McIntyre. But that could be a difference maker. And Matt McIntyre with that right side damage on the upcoming potential final pit stop. Extended stay on pit road could end up losing Matt McIntyre this race. But as I was going to say, it could be a big points day right now for drivers like Dylan Poteet and Keith Batson and even Jessica Shelton, who has now cracked into the top 10. Batson and Poteet were trying to get above the cut line. Shelton trying to distance herself from the cut line. And if things continue to trend in the direction that they're going, those three will have mission accomplished in those regards. And it will be interesting to see what their scenario looks like going into Arizona next week. It's also going to be interesting to see what everybody else's scenario looks like with the fact we've got about 2/3 of our playoff field running this race outside of the top 25. Now, Levi McIntyre, a former winner on the season. Anybody remember where his victory was? If you guessed Pocono, you're correct. And what did I say coming into this race? This track is kind of like a miniaturized Pocono. So is it any surprise that Levi McIntyre is running well here today? He's now made his way around the lap machine of Matt Haas. He'll have one more car to deal with before he can get up there to Matt McIntyre, that being the lap car of Quentin Moore. But I'm looking at lap times here, and yes, I know the damage that Matt McIntyre's gotten has certainly exacerbated his problems, but even prior to that, Levi McIntyre was closing in. McIntyre last time by 38.5, and for Matt McIntyre last time by a 38.5 as well. Looks like 200ths faster for Levi though. So that's actually impressive that the lap times are that similar, with Matt McIntyre getting into the wall. But now he's going to be battling with Benjamin Miles, who is on the tail end of the lead lap. That could hinder his speed. 38.842 there that time for Matt McIntyre, and Levi ran a 38.439. So that time he gained about 4/10. Keith Batson's worked his way up to 6th, and caution is out. Yellow flag waves for the first time today on lap 44. And I think this caution's coming out way early for these drivers to be within the window to make it the rest of the way. They're going to have to pit at least one more time after they pit under this caution, which I think they're going to do. Granted, they've only run about 15 green flag laps since the pit stop, but the way that these lap times are wearing down and the way that I think that this track has been chewing up the good years, I think you're going to see everybody make the dive onto pit lane. This may or may not have been the caution that Matt McIntyre wanted to see, because everyone's going to be bunched up now, and if they spend time repairing that right side damage, he's going to lose more than likely a lot more spots than he would have if he had made the pit stop under green. Got some dust kicked up there off the exit of turn 3. Not sure if that's where the incident was that brought out the yellow flag, but Matt McIntyre is going to lead the entire field down pit road. And as he does that, and we'll check back to see who wins the battle off pit lane, who's going to restart where, let's go back and take a look at what brought out this yellow flag. About halfway through this race, it looks like we had an incident up into turn 1. May have involved the 2 of Dylan Young and potentially a playoff contender in Reese Banks. Here's a look at it off of turn 3. A 3-wide battle between Young, Banks, and Will Goss. It looks like Dylan Young was not quite clear, or maybe Reese Banks runs into the right rear quarter panel, but whatever the case, the 2 gets hooked up into the wall. Oh, and then we had some other drivers involved there. Cody Lamas, Anthony McCrory, Carson Gum, and Cole Deaver. The 84 actually almost went over. And a lot of damage on the Florida Panthers Chevrolet, as well as the Celsius Mazda MX-5. Carson Gum with a pretty good shot as well in the 19. Let's take another look at that one. This was Cody happening up upon the wreck as Dylan Young slides down into traffic along with Reese Banks, and not the best of camera shots there. Cody actually got up and on his side and almost went up and over. After a great run last week at Hillside, Cody Lamas collected up in this one. And we've got another another problem that we gotta try and document here because it involves a playoff driver. And we need to see if we can figure out where it occurs. Might have been on the pit stop here. Let's see if we can find anything untoward for the 94 of Jessica Shelton, who is being scored now out of the race with a tire problem. Let's watch this here. Goes into her stall. Everything looks good up to this point. Right side's going on. Come around to the left. Does she get into somebody leaving her stall? No, she just flat out retires out of the race. That's an odd one. Was it that they couldn't get the left side tire on? I don't know what it was exactly. You guys just saw it right there. Maybe you can draw your own conclusion on what went down, but that's an odd one, and that takes Shelton out of this race. Shelton, who came into this one 8 points to the good above the cut line, 6th in overall points, is going to be the first playoff contender out of the event this afternoon. She will join Anthony McCrory back behind the wall. McCrory had the radiator pushed in after the contact we saw him take over in turn 1. They'll finish 41st for Shelton, 42nd for Anthony McCrory. As we get ready to go back green, 40 cars running, 36 on the lead lap with some lap machines down on the inside line. And Levi McIntyre will be the one to lead us back to green. Matt McIntyre, the former leader, they did spend time repairing that right side damage. He'll restart back in the 12th position. Green flag back in the air. We're around the vicinity of about 33 laps to go, which puts them right on the cusp of whether they could make it the rest of the way or not. We saw them go about 31 laps for the most on that first green flag run. Depending on how much they might have been able to save here under these pacing laps, somebody may roll the dice and may run the entirety of this race to the checkers. Others, though, they might not be able to save enough to get there. Levi McIntyre, though, looking to get 2 wins on the season at triangular-shaped speedways. But he's got Daniel Voiles right behind him, hounding him for the top spot. Daniel Voiles was a 2-time winner last year, so looking for that first victory here of Season 7. Voiles 39th in points, a 25th place average finishing position in the 29 races he's taken part in, not including this afternoon. Dylan Poteet on the hunt. Poteet has a very good short run car, as we saw in the beginning stages of this race, and he's going to work here on Daniel Voiles. We'll move into P2. Not quite clear on Voiles here down the front straightaway. Voiles trying to pull him back on the right rear. Michael Norman right there as well. Looks like Poteet's going to get the inside advantage there with the fresh tires through 1 and 2. Michael Norman right behind him, though, in 4th. Was looking to move into 3rd, but now going to get cut off by the Oreo Ford Mustang. And Kyle Matthews still very much in this conversation, holding down the 5th position. Mitchell Collins right now in 6th, though it looked like he may have gotten the wall off of turn 2 just a tad. Don't see visible damage on the right side of that machine, so he could be okay. Collins doing a great job here. The Michael Norman Motorsports cars have looked pretty good. Of course, Matt McIntyre has been out in front for a total of 33 laps. Michael Norman has led 9 laps, and Collins now up here inside of the top 10. Zachary Fitzwater making his way now past the last of the lap traffic. That's he's in P7. And then Jose Mills right now in 8th with Keith Batson and RJ Bishop 9th and 10th. Good run there for RJ. Looks like Matt McIntyre, I don't know if it's the damage he had or just the fact he's now back in traffic, but that car does not look the same as it did in the early stages of this race when he was able to work his way up to and stay at the front. He's got his hands full there with the lap car of Quentin Moore. Playoff contender Austin LaPlante to his inside. A couple of drivers I'm noticing, though, that are slowly making their way up here towards the front. How about Nick Gunther? This is a great run for him. He struggled in qualifying yesterday, kept hitting the wall, wasn't able to really put down a legit qualifying lap, and subsequently started at the rear of the field today. Had some contact right there between him and Austin LaPlante. I nearly put the commentator's curse on him. But he's done a good job of working his way from the rear of the field, now up into the top 15, under fire from Austin LaPlante, but a far cry better finish, looking like en route for the Mazda than it was where he initially started this race. Good run as well for the S3 Motorsports Chevrolet of Cole Deaver, who's battling right now with the lap car of Matt Haas. You may have caught a glimpse of Cody Lamas coming onto pit road. They've been repairing that car after he was involved in that incident over in turn 1. He restarted this race on the tail end of the lead lap, but now with these unscheduled stops, he is -3, down to 40th on the current running order. A couple of drivers this caution, giving them an opportunity to kind of make some comebacks in terms of playoff contenders. Zach Rogers right now in 18th, and Ryan Butcher, who is back around the 35th, 36th position most of the first half of this race, has now cracked the top 20. Last time by, he was scored in 19th, and looking for more as they're 3 wide ahead of him with Sanford, Rogers, and Matt McIntyre. Some others that are looking to improve from where they were running. A couple of the teammates out of Lake Effect Autosport, I should say. Casey Hoyt in the 74, and Jesse Turner in the 47. Reese Banks is way back here as well in the 44 car, so all 3 of those team cars running back in the mid to late 20s. Reese Banks and Matthew Rodriguez, remember, came into this race the co-points leaders, and here they are, side by side around the 28th spot. Rob Evans and Connor Breton, though, those two still looking like their situations are rather bleak, as they are currently on the tail end of the lead lap. Evans in 33rd, Breton in 32nd. There's Cody Lamas back down pit road. We had a lead change, apparently, that I missed. Levi McIntyre losing the top spot to Daniel Voiles, and has actually since dropped all the way back to 5th place. So Voiles now the new leader, Poteet right behind him in 2nd, and Michael Norman into 3rd. Now, we missed it, but there's a couple of question marks as far as Levi McIntyre. 1, did his car fall off here on the long run? 2, did he maybe brush the wall, and that's why he's back where he is? Or 3, did he fall back there to maybe start saving a little bit of fuel in case he's got thoughts of making it to the checkered flag without making a trip to pit road? So far today, we've only had a total of 5 drivers that have been out in front. Matt McIntyre has led the most laps, 33 circuits out in front here at Hanford Speedway. Michael Norman has led 9. Levi McIntyre and now Daniel Voiles have each led 7. And Dylan Poteet has led 3. That is it for the drivers that have been able to enjoy the clean air out in front here at Hanford Speedway. Kyle Matthews is the only driver inside of the top 5 that has not led a lap, and Fitzwater's car looks like it's coming on strong here late, as are a couple of the young motorsports Fords. RJ Bishop and Destin Bolin have now worked their way up to 7th and 8th position. We're going to one of RJ Bishop's home tracks next week, as we'll be at the Arizona Speedway for playoff race number 6, elimination race number 2. We will whittle the field down from what was originally 17 playoff contenders, now 12, down to our Elite 8. In preparation for the final 3-race round to determine the final 4 that will compete for the championship in the season finale at Michigan. Second place contest here. Michael Norman to the inside of Dylan Poteet. Poteet with that high swing off of turn 2. Holds off Michael Norman for the time being. As they continue to battle, it's allowing Daniel Voiles to be able to scamper away with the race lead. I love the position of the start-finish line here at Hanford, because it kind of reminds me in some respects of how they positioned the start-finish line at Talladega as opposed to Daytona. They put it down past the center of the tri-oval. But putting the start-finish line where they do here at Hanford, that gives an opportunity for a long front stretch drag race to the checkered flag. I think it kind of helps out that second place driver in the ability to be able to make a move potentially for the race victory. As Voiles hits that line again. And we are now at a total of 18 laps to go. The window's open to make it the rest of the way if they chose to pit, but I think for a lot of these drivers, if they are indeed short of making it on fuel, they're not going to pit until the very last second, and then I'm not sure they even take on tires. I know we've been talking and preaching about how important tires are here at a racetrack like this, but if you're going out there to just complete 2 or 3 laps, the amount of time it would take you to even change right sides, the amount of fuel you've got to take on, it's just not worth losing all that time. And you know that everybody else is probably going to play the same strategy, so you don't want to put yourself at a disadvantage. Fitzwater, Bishop, and Bolin going to work on Levi McIntyre. I think this is the trio we got to keep an eye on here in the closing stages of this race, because they are making forward progress and they are doing it quickly. The question of if they have enough time begs to be asked, but Fitzwater's made his pass on Levi McIntyre. He's now looking to go to work on Kyle Matthews, and I mean the top 4 can all see each other. They're all in the same straightaway here. Nobody's really been able to relatively get away from the other. The gap last time by from Poteet up to Daniel Voiles was a little less than 9/10 of a second. And remember, prior to our only caution so far today coming out, Matt McIntyre had a nearly 5.5 to 6 second lead back to Levi McIntyre. So this is nothing compared to the lead that we had earlier on in this race. Speaking of Matt McIntyre, let's see where the 21 is now. He had fallen way back outside of the top 15 last we saw, and yeah, he's not made up any progress. Looks like that car has really fallen off ever since he got the damage, went out in front in the race lead. 19th place is where he's currently scored. Some other drivers that have come on strong late here, though, include Zach Rogers and Nick Gunther. Gunther's now up to 11th, Rogers in 12th, and you saw the caution lights come on there. Yellow flag waves again. Second time today, and now fuel will no longer be a concern. But now throws up a big question. We're going to stay with the leaders here before we go back and take a look at what brought out this yellow flag, because do you come to pit road, take on that last little bit of fuel you might have been lacking, or do you stay out, keep your track position, and try and save those 2 or 3 laps of fuel under pacing? You know, a lot of drivers towards the rear of the field, they're going to be coming to pit road. They'll top off, they'll put on tires. But what about here at the front? Pit road's open, and looks like everybody's coming in. So Daniel Voiles going to lead the field down pit road, and let's take a look and see what brought out this caution for the second time this afternoon at Hanford. Looked like I might have seen some smoke lingering over on the inside of turn 2. Though I'm not 100% certain that's where it was at. Yeah, it was turn 2. Oh, man. A bad day gonna go worse for Matt McIntyre. Battling with Joshua Osborne, last week's winner from Hillside. Let's see what happens here. Now looks like maybe Benjamin Miles got into the back of Osborne. Oh, Reese Banks and Connor Breton, along with Rob Evans. 3 playoff drivers right there. Oh, and then LaPlante as well. That's 4 playoff contenders. Just like that. Bang, 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 bang. 5 playoff drivers, now with incidents. And this is a big one over in turn 2, starting up inside of the top 20. Let's see if this angle will show us anything here. Watch the 25 of Miles step out here on Osborne, and does he... Yeah, right there, gets him in the left rear, sends him up into McIntyre, and then right there, Banks, Breton, Evans right there. And then here comes the 48 of LaPlante. And right there, he gets into the back of Breton. Carson Gum gets into it as well. Dylan Young, I think, got a piece. 65 is done for the day. I feel like the same can be said for Connor Breton. Both those drivers took some pretty big hits. Reese Banks, I think, also is probably done. Jury kind of out there on Austin LaPlante. But man. Here's a look at it again. There's the shot Banks takes. See smoke erupt from underneath his car, and then you see front-end to front-end contact with Evans and Breton, and then that shot right there I think is going to be some pretty good damage on the 48 of Austin LaPlante. That is 4 playoff drivers right there. We had a playoff driver in Jessica Shelton have an incident earlier on pit road. And we're going to have a good number of cars that are going to be down right around that cut line heading into next week at Arizona. Looks like an extended stay on pit road for one Caleb Fogler. I didn't see him involved in that wreck, but he's still sitting on pit lane in the 28 car. And we've already got a few drivers that have gone back behind the wall, and 3 of them are playoff drivers. Reese Banks, Connor Breton, and Rob Evans. Now for Reese Banks, he came into this race 18 above the cut line. Connor Breton came in 11 above the cut line. But Rob Evans, the regular season champion, remember I mentioned you can get away with 1 bad race, but you cannot get away with 2. This will be back-to-back DNFs here in this round of 12 for Rob Evans. Evans, I believe, is going to be going into Arizona next week in a must-win situation. Banks, Breton, Evans, and Shelton make up 4 of 6 drivers back behind the wall here as we get ready to go back green with 10 laps remaining. Daniel Voiles the leader, but with it being less than 10 to go, the lap cars of Mike Tellier and Quentin Moore are not on the inside. They are instead right in front of him. There is Fogler coming off of pit lane. And was that what I just saw there? The 78 of Ryan Butcher leaving pit lane as well? Butcher now, I believe, is going to be off the lead lap. That's another playoff driver. We got to wait for scoring to update. Scoring had Ryan Butcher in 33rd, 1 lap down, and he may be more than that. Hanford is not taking any prisoners when it comes to playoff drivers, but one playoff driver that is loving the race today is Dylan Poteet, and he's looking for the race lead here on Daniel Voiles. Zachary Fitzwater in the 3rd spot, and then Kyle Matthews and Levi McIntyre side by side for 4th. Got the lap car of Caleb Fogler that's going to be ahead of these drivers. Vogler is, I believe, up to speed, albeit 1 lap down in 32nd place. Ryan Butcher is 2 laps down in 33rd after scoring has updated itself. And Poteet, is he clear for the lead? I believe he is. Dylan Poteet is going to go to the point. Fitzwater is going to help put him there. Now Fitzwater goes alongside of Voiles for second, and Poteet trying to see if he can get by the lap car of Caleb Vogler. Vogler, though, with a little bit of a drafting help for Daniel Voiles down the stretch into turn 2. Almost got him back alongside of Poteet. Looks like the 28 of Vogler going to be the only car these drivers have to deal with. A big gap up there to Quentin Moore and others. And boy, that car of Vogler really messed up Daniel Voiles, because Voiles went way wide through 3. Fitzwater moves into second. McIntyre, that being Levi McIntyre, will look to move to third. Now Fitzwater trying to get by Caleb Vogler. Needs that lap car out of his way to get up to Dylan Poteet to battle for this race win. Going to be a hardship day for a bunch of playoff contenders heading into next week, but for Dylan Poteet, he wants to go in knowing he's got the golden ticket to the round of 8. Last season, that Fortnite Squad Racing will be under the Chevrolet manufacturer, as they'll be moving over to Toyota's next season. Dylan Poteet looking for a multi-win season here. Still has the lap car between himself and the battle for second place. Another thing that's on his side is time, because the laps are rapidly ticking away. Fitzwater clear into second place on Voiles. Levi McIntyre way up the track, opens up the door to have a challenge from Kyle Matthews for the 4th position. Ryan Butcher on what looks like fresh tires, lap car, fighting his way through, and look who's following him is his teammate Ryan Brommer, trying to crack his way up into the top 5. As battle will continue to be for second place, Voiles and Fitzwater, have they kind of thrown in the towel of getting up there to battle with Poteet for the race win. Poteet starting to actually gap the lap car of Caleb Vogler. Nearly 10 car lengths back to Zachary Fitzwater, who now goes to the inside of Vogler. He's going to have to make very quick work of this 28 if he's going to have a shot of getting up there and taking the win away from Dylan Poteet. Looks like the 78 of Ryan Butcher on those fresh tires is much faster. Maybe they let him go, have him get up there and kind of distract Poteet. Looks like Fitzwater is clear of traffic, though. Now he's going to try and go to work here. Whoa, contact! Butcher into Vogler, puts Vogler up into the wall. No caution's going to come out. They both kept it straight. That might have been exactly what Zachary Fitzwater needed, though, because now he's almost mano-a-mano with Dylan Poteet. Now it comes down to lap times and execution on these final 3 laps. Let's see what the lap times look like this time by. It looked like Fitzwater had a much better longer run car than Poteet the last cycle. Poteet with a 39.288, Fitzwater with a 39.463. So Poteet with the advantage that time by. And Fitzwater, if he makes a mistake, he's got Voiles on his back bumper. Oh my gosh, Butcher is just driving it into the corner there. That time into the side of Daniel Voiles. Those fresher tires coming into play for the Popeyes Toyota. Even though this is not for position for him, might just be driving frustrated. And now he'll get to the inside of Zachary Fitzwater. It looks like going into turn 1. If I'm Fitzy, I'm letting him go. Don't put up a fight. 2 laps remaining for Dylan Poteet here, though. And the last time by, it was about a second gap from him back to Fitzy. Dylan Poteet came into this race after the DNF last week at Hillside, the lowest of the 12 remaining playoff contenders. He was 17 points below the cut line. And now, heading through turn 3 and off the corner, he'll see the white flag. He will be a little less than a mile and a half away from capturing an automatic ticket into the next round. 1 week early. 70 of James Qualls. It's like an unscheduled stop for him. Looked like an unscheduled stop for a playoff contender in Keith Batson, who was looking like he was going to finish this race in the top 10. Not sure what was going on there unless they didn't get that thing full of fuel. Pote going to deal here with the lap car of Ryan Butcher. He's just going to let him on by. He doesn't have to worry about him. He has to worry about Fitzwater, who's about 7-8 car lengths back. Dylan Poteet is a two-time winner in the Duracell Next Gen Cup Series in Season 7, and he will lock himself into the round of 8 to battle for the championship. What a difference a week makes. From worst to first. From Hillside to Hanford. And Dylan Pote will be able to say he was the very first driver to take a checkered flag here at the debuting Hanford Speedway, this historic racetrack here in playoff race number 5. So after a couple of weeks of non-playoff drivers finding victory lane and leaving it up to points for drivers to make their way into the next round, Dylan Poteet finally breaks in. And Poteet will be advancing into the next round. He can go into Arizona's elimination race next week worry-free, but the same cannot be said for a host of other playoff drivers, which we will see here in just a moment, as we're waiting for the standings to be official, and it looks like now they are. So Dylan Poteet ends up being the one of 2 playoff drivers that finish out this afternoon inside of the top 10. Zachary Fitzwater, great run for him in second. Ryan Brommer going to bring it home in third. That was a hard charge for Ryan Brommer in the closing stages to nab a podium. Daniel Voiles will bring it home in fourth, and Levi McIntyre will finish the day out in fifth. Good run for RJ Bishop this afternoon in sixth. Mitchell Collins in seventh. Kyle Matthews up in the top 10 all day gets eighth. Michael Norman brings it home in ninth, and Zach Rogers was the last playoff contender to finish inside of the top 10. Came into this race the cut line driver. Don't think he'll be the cut line driver after today. If anything, I think he may be above the cut line with a bit of a cushion. Chris Dollerton, good run there for the 83 as he gets 11th. 12th place for the 12 of Destin Bolin. Nick Gunther was 13th, 14th for Nathan Norman, and Casey Hoyt was able to battle back for 15th. Good run for him there. I know that's not a top 10, not a top 5, but considering the fact he ran most of the first half of this race around the 32nd, 33rd spot, that is a huge net gain for Casey Hoyt in the second half of this afternoon's event. Jose Mills, after starting on pole, drifted back to finish 16th. 17th for Cole Deaver, 18th Benjamin Miles after leading a race-high 33 laps. Matt McIntyre, unfortunately, finishes back in 19th, and 20th was Laura Chung. Look at all of these playoff drivers outside of the top 20 here. Jesse Turner will finish in 22nd. Matthew Rodriguez in 23rd. LaPlante will finish in the 26th position. Keith Batson, unscheduled pit stop in the closing stages of this race. We're still trying to figure out if maybe they didn't get that car full of fuel or what the case was. He was en route to finishing around the top 12, 13, something like that. And he's going to suffer a 28th place finish. He was below the cut line coming this race, remember. And then look at these names down here. Ryan Butcher, the unscheduled stop in the closing stages just before we went back green, puts him a lap down in 32nd. And then the big hit's going to be the DNF suffered by 4 playoff contenders. Reese Banks, Connor Breton, Rob Evans, and Jessica Shelton, 38th through 41st for those 4 playoff contenders right there. Rob Evans, back-to-back DNFs. He will be in a must-win situation heading into next week. Jessica Shelton was not that far ahead of the cut line, so she's going to need a really good run next week. Reese Banks and Connor Breton, they had a little bit more of a cushion, but that may be gone depending on what the calculations look like at the conclusion of this one. They may be the cut line drivers. They may be just above the cut line, just below the cut line. We're going to have to wait and see because the cut line now shifts with Dylan Poteet, who is below the cut line, winning here today. But congratulations to him and the 31 team. Second win on the season for Dylan Poteet. joins that long list of drivers that have gotten multiple wins this season. And he'll look to carry this momentum into next week, knowing he will be battling in the Elite 8 the next round of the playoffs. Who will join him? We know that at least a maximum of 6 drivers will point their way in. Maybe 7 if we have a non-charter or non-playoff win, I should say, go to Victory Lane next week at Arizona, but we will have to wait and find out. Hope you guys enjoyed today's race here from Hanford. Unfortunately, we couldn't do Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. I'm very bummed about that because that road course had some really good racing. Just the pit road was the biggest problem that we couldn't fix. But Hanford did a good job as a substitute. We'll have to see. Did it do enough to be able to garner a spot on next year's schedule? Hey, weigh in the comments. Let us know what you thought of this race here today. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe, part through today. We've shown you full feature results, and you are now looking at the point standings heading into next week at Arizona Speedway, the next elimination race where we go from the round of 12 into the round of 8. But until then, I've been Seth Cole, and you've been watching another broadcast of NNSCRA TV Offline Racing at its best.